The primary objectives of this project are to document how embers ignite homes during a WUI fire. For this research, we will be attempting to initiate a continuous crown fire and have it shower the structures behind me with embers. We have 9 structures behind me, 3 different varieties of structures ranging from the most fire smart build to the least fire smart build. And we're looking to document how the embers from a crown fire will interact with those structures and possibly cause structure-to-structure ignition and ultimately what would become a WUI disaster if this were a town.
We can collect data that shows people, okay, this is an ember storm, this is where the embers land, this is how your structures ignite. I think that would go a long, long ways for public education and increase the probability of structural survival.
The real exciting part is that we get to put real live fire against structures, against our sprinkler protection. And these are things that you just can't reproduce in a laboratory. So we're going to have the total effects of the fuel, the weather, and the topography here. And it's going to create a very realistic simulation for us and certainly going to give us some valuable data down the road.
This year we're out setting up instrumentation, video cameras inside and outside the cabins, temperature measurements in the attic and in the main room, and then what we call heat flux sensors so we can determine how much energy is transmitted from the fire to the face of the cabin. And the hope there is to, I guess, learn a little more definitively how much energy is needed to get these cabins burning. And that would inform then things like building codes and fire smart positioning of fuels and ornamentals in your yards, and how you can do that to minimize the chances that one of those things burning is going to cause your house to catch fire.
We have 3 structures in this Fire Smart project that we're going to subject to live fire. We have sprinklers on these values. So our goal is to test how little water we need in order to stop fire from progressing and basically catching the value on fire. The other component of it is how long do we have to run these sprinklers prior to the embers and the fire getting there to be effective and again stopping the spread of fire towards the structures.
My job as a risk management coordinator is working with community protection and how can we mitigate risk to a community, to homes, to people's livelihood. Anytime we can get research like this that shows us that we can mitigate the risk and we can save structures, people's homes, people's livelihood, if we can prove some things here today that help us to mitigate that and eliminate those risks, then I think we're doing our job.
To decide what kind of ignitions we're using for our burn, we firstly want to consider our objectives of the project and what sort of fire we're looking to get. In order to get a certain type of fire, we are going to be looking at indices, the fuel type, fuel arrangement, and our ignition patterns. Benefits of using the torch is that we can skip the acceleration phase of ignition. We can input a lot of heat into our ignition and skip that acceleration phase because we have such a small area that we're actually burning. We want to get it as hot as possible right off the bat.
The end results of this experiment, once the fire has concluded, will be very interesting to see what structures survived, fire entryways into those structures. Being able to capture scientific data about how embers are transitioning out of wildfires and igniting structures will not only help us from a fire smart standpoint, but will really help us to begin to understand how these fires are moving into and through communities.
The goal for this project is to send a message to communities on how they can best prepare their neighborhoods with building the new structures with the right materials to be a bit more fire resistant. If we learn and understand how these techniques work to protect ourselves from the wildland fires, we'd like to encourage the communities to get involved with fire smart mitigation treatments, to do a bit of the pre-work before the fire season so that they're better prepared and better able to be resistant and resilient to a wildfire.
Increasingly in British Columbia, as our communities are expanding, we're seeing more and more neighborhoods interfacing directly with wooded areas. From this research, I hope that we're able to gather valuable and interesting data from these tests and able to leverage that for future tests, not only on this site, but potentially on future sites if we're able to establish sites in other areas of the country.
So the National Institute of Standards and Technology is one of the oldest federal research labs in the US nation. At NIST, in the Fire Research Division, we have a group of researchers that is devoted to the wildland-urban interface. And in this group, I'm leading a project on firebrains. So everything that you will see here on site is geared towards better understanding airborne firebrains and when the land also try to characterize them. We've done a lot of post-fire investigations since the early 2000s. Between 60 and 90 or 90% of structures in the WE fire are lost due to firebrand attacks. That's the focus of the research here.
The fire behaved with the different structures in the way that we assumed going into the project. The FireSmart structure did the best it could in those circumstances, but when it was faced with direct flames, it did ultimately ignite as well. For our sprinkler testing, we looked mainly at the timing intervals prior to the fire interacting with structures. From that data, we'll be able to extrapolate some rough numbers on the actual volume of water needed to protect structures. The overall key learnings that the team is taking away from this project are that the FireSmart principles work, and following those principles in and around your home are the best way to defend your home against wildfire. These learnings will benefit FireSmart and BC communities by further building our evidence-based approach to wildfire mitigation in and around communities. We're planning for our 2025 season in the Northwest Territories. We look forward to conducting more experiments in the future and furthering our understanding of how wildfires interact with communities. We're excited to continue our work with these partners to pursue validating the FireSmart principles and gaining more evidence-based approach to FireSmart.